Hello, welcome to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast. At Kinetic Leadership Consulting, we put your energy in motion to lead with our Leadspace Leadership Certification course, in partnership with the University of Charleston School of Leadership. As Leadspace Leadership teaches effective leadership by using articles of engagement as scholar practitioners of leadership, it is vitally important to continue having leadership development discussions, to share our tactics, techniques, and perspectives by telling a story or sharing a message that may very well be the advice someone needed to hear, to help them with their leadership journey. Again, welcome to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast with Dr. Caesar Kellum.
Almost got started earlier because when I say a warm start, because that's what I love about these conversations. That I wanted to start this podcast because I believe in the power of embracing ongoing leadership development, yes, but embracing ongoing continuous leadership development conversations. I would like everyone to help me welcome Dr. Ebony Stubbs, a leadership coach, a consultant, and CEO of LeadHER Conversations, where she's cultivating a community where women of color in leadership can connect, grow, and thrive. Her platform is built on the core values of honesty, empowerment, and relatability. And while she has excelled in many professional pursuits, she's honored to be a mother, a role that gives her a unique personal comprehension of the very nature of balance and resilience. And while this may not be in your bio, Ebony, you were the best classmate ever, as we were both in the Doctorate of Executive Leadership program at the University of Charleston School of Business and Leadership. And with that, it is my honor to welcome Dr. Ebony Stubbs to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast. Wow, that's pretty cool. We waited a long time. We've talked about this for years, if you will, not so much directly, but it is an honor to introduce you, Dr. Ebony Stubbs, and thank you for being with me today on the Leadspace Leadership Podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me here. The words, I hear them, and I'm like, wow, that you're talking about me. That's pretty awesome. That person sounds pretty awesome.
I tell you what, you are pretty awesome. And I want everybody to go to LeadHERConversations.com and check out your website for just more information. I barely hit, the wave tops or scratch the surface, but as doing your intro, it's about sharing our experiences, sharing our stories. We went to school together for a few years. It's like it was yesterday. And we're just out here rocking and rolling. So, I know we did a little bit of a pre-brief. I think everything worth doing is, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you and share it with the world. And you're like, well, can you give me a little bit about what you like to talk about? And the previous podcast, and I'm going to refer to you as Dr. Ebony because I checked out your podcast and your website, and it is Dr. Ebony. So in all respects, if I know I'm used to saying I'll get over. I can get it done, Dr. Ebony. I kind of kept these questions that we use as a springboard about leadership and leadership development. What's on your mind? What you're passionate about to share out there. And I keep the questions similar. It's like Dr. Barnett standing on my shoulder saying, well, if you're not going to break it out and what, now what, then what are you really doing here? So do you have any questions of me or anything? Or I'd like to make sure. Now that is just a wave top introduction. There's no way for me to capture all you're doing. It's truly impressive. So CEO, LeadHER Conversations. I listened to a few of those podcasts. Well, very well done. Your website is impressive. Your podcasts are even more impressive. So congratulations.
No, thank you again, Caesar. I don't necessarily have any questions. I'm just very excited to be here. I can't stop smiling because I do remember us in that first year, doctors to be, right?
Doctors to be.
And planning of how we were just going to conquer this world, right?
Yeah.
That UC was going to be our springboard into actioning all these plans that we have. And so to be sitting here with you today and the realization of part of that it's just a happy place. And so I just can't stop smiling. I'm trying to be a professional today.
And I'm totally with you too. So I had to grab the book, you know what I mean? So we'll just do a shout out to Dr. Walker. Thank you for writing the book, sir, of which the DL program is anchored in. I still got this thing all marked up, and I refer to it often, especially in conversations with him. We've had an opportunity to create a little bit more of an intellectual community within the Walker Fellows. So
Right.
it's been really cool. So, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So, and like I said, these are spring. If we get to all these questions, cool. There's just 3 questions and a what, so what, now what. And if we get to all of them, cool. If we don't, well, we know what the next podcast is going to start with. So, I like to start with the for what, to set up the role and in general kind of question. And there's certain parts of this I wanted to delete, so I'd love some feedback from you if you want a little bit later, because I want to keep it so center mass though that it's relevant to today and really gets your voice out there. So considering the changing landscape in leadership, especially with the advances in technology, what do you believe are essential qualities or skills for leaders in order to thrive and not just survive?
Well, that's good, Caesar. You just jump right in there.
Yeah, that's the what. And then we get
Well, I would say there are some things I think just won't change as far as being a great leader, regardless of the time, the environment, position, rank, whatever. There are some things that I think are just at the core of being an effective leadership. And I would say it's those soft skills, but now we're reterming that to those strong skills, to those people, empathy, emotional intelligence, being able to understand not just from a work perspective what people need while you're leading them, but understanding what people need. What do the people behind the work need? Being able to really dial into that and then do it from an authentic place, I think is what separates good leaders from just great people. I think, and I say that part to distinguish the two on purpose, right? I think that we have lots of good and possibly great leaders, but not necessarily good or great people in those leadership positions. And people want to follow great people. And so being able to authentically invest and employ yourself in the betterment of your people, I think will always be at the core of great leadership. And then, in the ever-changing environment, cultural competence. I think that goes beyond just outwardly being diverse, but also understanding inwardly, like those diverse aspects, different learning styles. I didn't really take that into consideration until later on in my career, realizing that, although I thought in my leadership was effective, were people really gaining anything from me that they could incorporate into themselves, learning from me? Were they learning from me? Was I reaching them in more than just a way of motivating them to to reach a goal? Were they learning anything truly from me? And me tapping into understanding different learning styles helped to enhance, me and my leadership practice.
As you say that about learning, I meant to share with you. I mean no disrespect while we're talking, but I'm a visual learner. So I as you speak, I process and I write things down. And just like that, understanding someone else's learning process. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. I mean, all that is valuable, right? I talk with my hands a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You'll see me moving my while I'm here. I'm trying to keep them down, but they'll pop up every now and then. And learning that, in some situations, maybe that comes across differently, like as a distraction or what have you. But that's just me, right? And being comfortable enough to display that. And then another thing I would say is leading collaboratively. I think when we first start off in leadership for some young leaders, you feel like you're there to prove yourself, right? As a leader. I have to solidify my position, why I am here. So I, and I,
Mm.
right? And I think that can be a mistake, especially early on if you don't learn how to work collaboratively with the team that surrounds you, and realizing that leadership takes multiple forms. There's a time when there is a direct approach to leadership, and that's the best way to go about it. And then there's a time where, you can add more of group autonomy to your leadership and really learning what that looks like and how to employ that.
Especially with the tech piece of that. I love that you brought up the meeting people up, in my own words, meeting people where they are. And you said, what do they really need? So it kind of reminds me of the echo, well, that's the policy. That's just the way it is. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't meet the needs of, a family member that's sick and someone needs to work remotely a little bit more than they used to. Do you cut your losses from the qualifications that you've invested in that person because of policy? I think something like that is completely 180 out from where you're being effective and saying, hey, what do they need? And is it authentic? Are you truly meeting them where they're at? But thank you for sharing that cultural competencies and the different learning styles. I guess that's really why I wanted to get, after we got through with our research, that's really why I wanted to get these conversations started. I felt like I learned so much from experienced executive leaders. I was like, why did I know this when I was at E4? Why didn't I know this when I was an O4? Why did it take this long? Why do I have to have this much gray in order to find out these things should be out there? So I really appreciate you sharing that, especially with the tech piece, because people get set in their ways, I think. And, one size fits all, to the world, to a hammer, everything's a nail. You know what I mean? So you've got to be flexible. You've got to be ready to change. I really appreciate it. And, while you were explaining that, Dr. Ebony, I haven't said Dr. Ebony yet, so that's why I said it like that. Dr. Ebony, when you say that, though, I think about, no, and it's fitting because I think about her. I think about your approach, and forgive me if I'm getting too far out from my headlights, but I feel like I'm applying your your platform and your perspective to kind of your comments that, hey, if when you go to do this, because I'm the kid that I don't say why anymore, I say how can I do that? How can I do that? And your how is you're sharing with me in the world is your how is, well, as long as you're being honest, as long as you're being empowering, and as long as you're being relatable. And that relatable is huge. We can get into that maybe a little bit more in the now what. Well, no, we'll get into it now, because I mean, relatable, unless you can, even in our large organizations, unless you can take every person, and it's worth the time and energy, I think, and show them how their actions connect to, we say you've got mission statements and things like that, but you should be able to draw the long line and go, this is how what you contribute keeps the pilot safe, keeps him with weapons, keeps him safe with weapons. Oh, man.
Yeah. And then understanding that is a continuous process, right? It's not just a one-time thing. Only because people's involvement and impact changes, their understanding of it changes, the mission changes. And so I think re-engaging from that level will always be important. For people to really want to follow you and follow not just you and your position, but follow you because they can relate to you, re-engaging and always reminding them how they impact the greater good, I think will always be valuable.
I love that. Where are your engagement points? You should be able to do the same and point right to them. And I think with that, Dr. Ebony, we've kind of transitioned into the second one, the somewhat of the so what, from your experience, I think we're talking about some of those approaches, strategies, what are your beliefs? What are your beliefs that you feel like And after speaking about that, what's led to your success as a leader?
I would say that the tools or strategies that I have used have evolved from me first starting off in my career and in leadership to where I am now. You know, coming in, you know, as a new leader, I really depended on relationships, right? Established relationships, seeking out mentorship, building a network, having sponsors, which I didn't recognize back then that it was sponsors, but really people who would speak my name in rooms and places where I just wasn't, right? But I think that I rely a lot on that because in leadership, at least in my experience, you don't know what you don't know, and a lot of times for me, my ability to be impactful in leadership came with my greater experience. And so coming in, I really relied on relationships and just learning. I was a leader who showed up and was like, I know I don't know everything. I'm not here to tell you I know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I am here to learn. I am here to support. And I am here, you know, to fill gaps, right? That's who I was as a new leader. I understood that I don't know everything, and I can't pretend like I do because I would fail.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to sustain that. And so I always came in with the approach of being upfront with who I am, but also being willing to stretch myself and let you know that I'm willing to stretch myself and that I'm here to support you, continuously reminding folks of that. And so I would say in the beginning, that's where I kind of landed, and that's where I found my sweet spot. And then I'll say now, you know, authenticity is extremely important to me in leadership, because I also have to learn that too. Like, my leadership style isn't like yours, nor does it have to be. I don't have to be, you know, what straight from the book definition of leader or leadership. That doesn't necessarily work for me, and it won't work for the people it won't work for my teams because it's not from an honest or relatable place, because it's not authentic.
I kind of want to hold up the Sage Handbook of Leadership and go, Dr. Ebony's not in here. Dr. Kellum's not in here. We're products of after learning that, you know what I mean? And it's not just that easy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not. And I'll go off on a little squirrel tangent here, if you don't mind. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy to sit in a room where people may be the picture perfect definition type of leader, and you're not. That's not comfortable, especially when you like, I want to do well. I want to perform. I can do this. I'm willing to do this. And so finding that place where you are comfortable with being authentically you, and showing up in spaces and being able to be that way, it's not easy, but it's worth it. It is definitely worth it. And with that, what I've also had to learn is that being my authentic self as a leader may mean that my leadership style is not for everybody. And that's too.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. It doesn't make me less effective. It doesn't mean that I'm not still performing well. It doesn't mean that my teams won't perform well. It doesn't mean that eventually, you know, I won't be for that person. But I don't have to. I am now at a point in my career where I feel like I don't have to continuously change a leadership style I'm sorry, hopefully.
Not at all.
Are you still there?
Mm-hmm. Got you loud and clear.
I'm sorry. It paused for a second. But I'm now at a point in my career where I don't feel like I have to change my leadership style because someone doesn't respond well to it, right? Maybe I need to figure out a different way of meeting that person. Where can I relate to that person where we can mutually win in our connection?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've focused on that a lot now in leadership. And one of the things that I talk about in her leadership is balance. And balance in her leadership is like a teeter-totter. You know, that old school part.
Yeah. It's about those many variables, right? It's like how much can but we always overload the scale. You know, we were talking about me having a cold, and I think it's because sometimes I don't know but two speeds, wide open or stop. You know what I mean? And it's like the body's just like, you need to shut down. You're gonna have a cold.
But yes, it is that, right? And what I try to communicate is balance doesn't mean equal. Doesn't mean that there's equal pieces of you in every piece of who you are. Balance just means at this moment, how do I feel, right? And do I feel good? And what it is that, and how I'm managing myself and my time. Do I feel good at that? And if I can say that, if I can say yes, then I'm balanced. If the answer is well, no, then I'm going back to all of who Ebony is and where am I off balance, and how can I renegotiate my time to bring back that balance. Because if I'm not feeling balanced, I'm not effective. I may show up and be impactful because of just the work that I've done previously, but I'm not as effective as I need to be because I'm feeling torn, I'm feeling pulled, and so maintaining balance for me has now become a priority, and not just outward leadership, but that self leadership too.
And so when I hear your explanation of balance, not doing a read back, I think that's a completely brand new perspective, Dr. Ebony, on maybe balance as a when you say it, I think balance, even Stephen, my brother's name is Stephen, we say it all the time. But as you explain it, it sounds very similar to maybe a truer or more applicable definition to being truly resilient. To today, my balance might be strong on my emotional fitness, but tomorrow it may not be my emotional fitness. It could be in the tank, but it could be my spiritual fitness. When I go to my spiritual fitness, and then I'm getting chills now because, okay, that meant that if you push me, I was balanced because I was balanced on that pillar that day. So it doesn't have to be the same every time. It's just got to be whatever you can balance with is what I think what I just heard and what I learned from you. I love it. I'd like to go back though, because it's easy to see how you labeled your success in leadership on relationships, and the importance of mentorship. And that goes back to when you were talking about earlier, that it's not about it's about that collaboration. So you got to practice with others and your support collaboration. I'm just kind of seeing those inner workings together. And it sounds like, to me, we haven't said it yet during the podcast, but it's come up in my mind that which we studied about and we talked about at University of Charleston, the DEL. But I don't think I've ever heard it put so well as you just said and described, is that you've got to create a safe to fail environment. You've got to create, when we talk about meeting people where they're at, being authentic for that engagement is you're in an environment where if you mess up, it's okay. We're not going to put you in a box for as a fail safe. That's a lot of Dr. Snowden's, discussions and
Mhm.
being domain aware and stuff. So no, that's really cool. That was awesome. Anything more to share there? I'm ready to rock on, and let's go to the now what. And I'm not going to be able to do that otherwise.
I would like to share just one last thing.
Mhm.
Now, just back to the second question,
Mhm.
and what for success, right? At this point in my career, and it's really figuring out how I can empower others, right? I am getting ready to, eventually transition to the second half of my the new chapter of my life, I'll say.
Mhm.
And so at this point in my current career, it's really about how do I empower others, so that they can have opportunities earlier on that were presented to me later or never presented. How
Mhm.
do I create pathways to success and for success for others? And really investing back into people that way.
Another one. So empowerment is about, we can talk about empowerment all day, and I can talk about engagement all day. But if you can't, as I was talking about earlier, pointy talky, you're talking about the last tactical mile and going, you've got to be able to define those pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what HER is all about, and right in the center of it is empowerment. So if you can't,
Yeah.
empowerment and pathways is that's powerful stuff, Dr. Ebony. I appreciate that. I'm glad we didn't leave that off. Very cool. I'm already building products in my mind, you know what I mean, and marketing materials and stuff like that. And let's get into number 3. And do you need a break or anything? Are you good?
I'm
Ready to
good.
rock? I tell you what, we had so many technical gremlins earlier. We're gonna and you're like, no, we're gonna rock and roll. Let's go. All right, so this is kind of the last question, for the springboard. You and I, we
Okay.
could talk about this all day and just have a blast. I don't know how long, I don't even know how long we've been talking so far. It's probably been 20 minutes or so, and it feels like maybe 5. We'll go ahead and get right into it. So we did the what, we did so what. I can tell Dr. Barnett's probably swelling with pride right now, so we'll move into now what. So we'll wrap up with your perspective on sharing about this question. So building on that entire discussion, what actual advice would you offer to leaders seeking to adapt their leadership approach to meet the challenges of today? I could have been corny and said, hey, what would you ask, the not Dr. Ebony, but, what would you ask yourself? What would you tell yourself 10 years ago, based on what you know today? Okay, there I was corny. Okay, go. So what actionable advice would you offer to leaders seeking to adapt their, and when I say adapt, I don't want to assume that they have a leadership approach. Maybe it would be defining their leadership approach to meet the challenges of the day, to either define or adapt their challenges.
Yeah. I think that that's key, right? That would be the first thing that I would tell someone. Who are you, right? And then who are you as a leader? Because those things aren't always the same. And I think that that's fine too. I think that that's fine that there's some difference in there, but really, really figuring out those two things. Well, not figuring it out, because it'll change, but really having an understanding in the moment of what those two things are and what they look like, I think will help into how you're able to lead and be seen as a leader at any phase of leadership. But I would also say embrace change. Embrace change. There will always be people around you who will say change is not necessary. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
Don't be that person.
And I guess they don't. I guess that when they're around, they don't really say it that way. They say, "What do they do? If it ain't broke, don't fix it." I mean, that's what they say.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Or this is the way we've always done it. We.
Why are you trying to? Why are you trying to change things? Yeah, you're laughing because you've lived this. Yes.
I am sure we've all heard these things in a multitude of ways, but don't be that person. And I'm not just saying change for change's sake either, right? Because you don't want to waste people's time. But I would also, but I am advocating for, if change is presented and if change, is in front of you, understanding that change. What is the change? Why are we changing? And what are the impacts of the change? And then make a decision based off that. I think that it's important that we embrace change and innovation, right? Because that's really what it is, that we embrace change and innovation, because we find ourselves in those moments. When you are in any position and you are involved in some sort of change and managing it, leading it, sponsoring it, develop whatever it is, you find yourself in those moments. You find out who you are as a person, who you are as a teammate, and who you are as a leader. And so embrace change. I once had a mentor who told me to run towards friction.
Friction.
That was, I mean, she instilled a lot of things in me, and I have a lot of sayings from her, but one thing she would always say was run towards friction. Don't be that guy running the other way. Run towards it. Because there's so much growth, there's so much to learn, there's so much opportunity in those frictions. Run to it.
I'm sure the first time you heard that, you're like, wait, what? Say that again? Wait, what?
I kind of just looked at her like, no, I don't want to run towards friction.
But she's right.
No.
Yeah, she's right. Giddy up.
No. Yes, she is and was right. For me, being a person who is not afraid of friction points, and friction points, change points, not afraid of being in those moments, it has allowed me the opportunity to work with people from different business backgrounds, different environments, different experience. It has helped me to learn things about myself and how I communicate, whether I good or bad.
Oh, I'm sure it's all right.
Although, yes, it's a great thing to be a part of change and seeing it to the end, but I felt like I always gained more just from a personal aspect and running towards that friction. And so, who are you? Embrace change and innovation.
I love that. I wish you could read my notes. You don't have to read them. I'm sure I'm going to tell them to you in a minute. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would also say prioritize well-being and balance. I didn't always do a very good job of that, which is why it's a heavy pillar in her leadership. I'm sitting here, mid-career, and I'm like, oh, I have so much stuff going on. This is really taxing. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. But I'm going to sign up for a doctoral program.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm going to do that. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to do required schooling for my job. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to take on one of the hardest jobs I've ever had before in my career. And while I'm doing that, it was just like,
Mom.
I did not do it. Right. I am a mom.
Oh.
You see how all that stuff just keeps that like, and
it
so
does.
I did not always do a great job of that. And parts of my life suffered for it. So really figuring out like what is
balance
is important, what isn't important, and how do I balance what's important to me now, and still prioritizing my well-being, my personal well-being. One thing that I tell my mentees now is that just because it's a great opportunity doesn't mean that it's great for you. right?
Some sage
And
advice.
really have
It's
to.
hard to pass up those great opportunities. It's hard to look around that shiny penny.
It really is. It really is, because we want to be involved with greatness, right? Great opportunities, things that will set us up and set us apart. We want that. But I think really understanding what then that means to you professionally and personally. Is it really a great opportunity for you? So prioritizing your well-being and balance. And then I would always say develop a network and cultivate relationships. That's why I'm sitting here today, right? Relationships. And so I think that at any part of your leadership journey, that will never go out of style. You know, developing a network and cultivating relationships. My dad would always tell me when we were younger, you know, you never want to burn bridges. I never really even understood what that meant. Like as a 10-year-old, like, what are you talking about? I don't even have any bridges. Like,
what? And I don't even know how to burn one. What are you talking about?
Dad, what are you talking about? I just don't want to be her friend anymore. Like, don't burn bridges. But you know, that lifelong advice stayed with me, right? And as I became an adult, it was something that really became important to me. Like, this person may not be my best friend, but I'm not going to do anything to go out of my way to burn that relationship or tear down the possibility of, or if they need me, they don't feel comfortable with reaching out. So build a network and cultivate relationships.
I love that.
I think that would be 4 things.
It is. And it reminds me of something, you know, my brother's since passed, but I remember in speaking about him and how, you know, sometimes people get like that. Well, I'm just done with that person. You know what I mean? And, you know, one of the blessings that he taught me is it was almost like he collected people. He heck sure didn't throw them away. You know what I mean? I was like, man, how do you know all these people? Good night. You know, but it, you know, to the opposite of that, you know, not to be that, not to just throw those relationships away. If you don't mind, I'd like to do a reback to connect some of those things that, I mean, you said it perfectly, but what I learned while I was listening to you and learning from you, Dr. Ebony, is, you know, that you didn't term it self-leadership, but knowing yourself, and maybe you did that it all starts right there. And I think that's one of the things, you know, we learned day one, year one in the DEO program. But what I really liked about that authenticity and the engagement, that we kind of went around a little bit, is because when it gets tough and you're going through that change, you won't lose yourself. You know, you won't lose your voice in a crowd when everybody's doing that popular thing. And I know you said you didn't want to go, you know, you said the squirrel, you know, on the topic, but, you know, as a Southern man growing up, you know, is like, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Well, you got to. Sometimes there's a rabbit there. So you don't know until you, I don't know if y'all have never been rabbit hunting, but yeah, you want to go down a rabbit hole. There might be a rabbit in there. If we go down there and there's not one, well, we'll go somewhere else. But that just really, that really resonates with me, that if you don't start with self, you know, you could possibly lose yourself, you know, in embracing and running towards that change. That's very, very, very impactful. Embrace change. Well, Dr. Ebony, I'm not going to do a read back. I'm going to tell you the things that I've learned, and not just from you in the past, but just looking at what you're doing now with LeadHER Conversations, and how you focused on how you continue to empower by focusing on that honesty, empowerment, and relatability, you know. And you brought up a few times relationships. I'll be honest with you. When I went into my research, I thought I was, you know, I had an idea that I wanted to, you know, where to put your, you know, energy, emotion to lead. And maybe this is what Leadspace leadership looks like. But when my participants turned my words, when I would ask them about interagency partnerships, and they turned that phrase into relationships. And I started counting how many times they brought up the importance of connecting relationships. It changed the model. I mean, it changed the game that you and I can be the absolute best in our knowledge, skills, and abilities, and our human capital could be off the charts. What's our social capital? What's our social capital in order to build those relationships, responsibilities, and roles, and connect, build, and drive? So I was really glad to hear that and see where it resonates and where our leadership models are similar or connection points, and they all will do that. I love what you said earlier. I can't wait to listen to this again about our leadership styles are most likely not the same, and they don't have to be. They really don't have to be. Can we be the right leader at the right time for that right instance? And if not, that's what we said at our academy: lead, follow, or get out of the way, right? Sometimes I'll be the best leader. Sometimes I'll be the best follower. And right now, it's been amazing to follow you with LeadHER Conversations. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebony.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast. Learn more at www.leadspaceleadership.com. And check out the Leadspace Leadership Certification course being offered at the University of Charleston. Take care and God bless.